It's 5 o'clock. I'll call the meeting to order. Sandy, would you call roll call, please?
Councilperson Brennan?
Here.
Rooney? Here. Harry?
Here.
Hanson? McGinty?
Yes.
Thank you. I welcome everybody here tonight, and you're welcome to make comments on the items on the agenda as they're shown here. And also, item number 4, citizens' opportunity to address the council on items not on the agenda. So with that being said, we'll move ahead with item number 2, consent of agenda. A, approval of agenda. B, approval of the minutes of the December 9th, 2013 council meeting and the January 3rd, 2014 special council meeting. And C, claims.
I would move approval of consent agenda.
I'll second it.
Okay, the motion has been made and seconded to approve item number 2, consent of agenda. A, approval of agenda. B, approval of the minutes of December 9th, 2013 council meeting and the January 3rd, 2014 special council meeting, and claims. Would you call for a vote, please?
Councilperson McGinty?
Yes.
Brennan?
Yes.
Rooney?
Yes.
Harry?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, we'll move on to item number 3, which is projects. A is Sac City facade project. Number 1 is consideration of approving the CDBG drawdown number 1 in the amount of $1,866. And I believe that's for Region 12, isn't it?
Yes.
Is there any discussion or questions about it?
I'll make the motion to approve the CDBG drawdown number 1 in the amount of $1,866.
I'll second it.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the CDBG drawdown number 1 in the amount of $1,866. Would you call for a vote, please?
Councilperson Rooney?
Yes.
Harry?
Yes.
McGinty?
Yes.
Brennan?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, number 2 is consideration of approving Region 12's bill in the amount of $1,866.
I'll make a motion that we approve Region 12's bill in the amount of $1,866.
I'll second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve Region 12's bill in the amount of $1,866. Would you call for a vote,
Have
please?
we received a check on this?
We would not until after we put in the CDBG application. We've seen drawdowns on number 1, which has been what we use to pay number 2. We've seen them take anywhere between 3 weeks and 8 weeks to get the draws from the state. Right?
So then this will be paid after we get the money from the state, is that correct?
We sometimes, with Region 12, they prefer that. They would prefer that, yes.
Okay. Any more questions? Would you call for a vote?
Councilperson Harry?
Yes.
McGinty?
Yes.
Brennan?
Yes.
Rooney?
Yes.
Motion carried.
3 projects. B is the 2013 street overlay maintenance project. And item number 1 is consideration of releasing the final retainage in the amount of $21,726.44. Is there any discussion around that? Adam, do you have any problems at all?
No, what happens is when the council accepts it and approves the final bills, like they did in December, there's then a 30-day window that is required before the final retainage can be released. So this is the first council meeting since that 30-day window, so now you've accepted paying bills, you just haven't released the final retainage.
Very good, thank you.
Curtis? Oops.
Go ahead.
Has there been an inspection or some sort of guarantee that it's all done and ready for release?
Yeah, that was all done prior to the final acceptance back in the first meeting in December.
That was by the engineer?
Yes.
Thank you.
Bill, do you have a question? You just,
Curtis,
he asked her?
Curtis,
Okay.
just-
Okay, are there any other questions, comments?
How does the total of this compare to the money that came from the state for the
The overall bill between the engineer and the contractor will end up being within $10,000 of what we got. I believe we ended up getting about $490 from the state, and in the end, the bills for this will be in the neighborhood of $480 to $490. It'll be real close.
Okay, any other questions or discussion?
I'll make a motion to release the final retainage in the amount of $21,726.44.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded to approve the release of the final retainage in the amount of $21,726.44. Would you call for a vote, please?
Councilperson Perry?
Yes.
McGinty?
Yes.
Brennan?
Yes.
Bernie?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Item number 4, citizens' opportunity to address the council on items not on the agenda. Are there any? If not, we'll move on to 5, miscellaneous. A, Randy Muckenberg to address the council regarding the Catholic Church sewer bill. Randy?
Yep. Randy, why don't I first give you a little bit of foreknowledge?
Okay.
Due to certain laws, the council is not even subject to knowing exactly what the bills are, how much the bills are, or what
Okay.
the quantities of the bills are. They have no foreknowledge of that information.
Okay.
It's of course up to the church itself for, as a representative, to you to share that with them if you choose.
Okay.
But just wanted to make sure you understood that.
Oh, yeah, that's no problem.
Okay.
Randy?
Well, we had a water leak under the floor of the church. I don't know what the heck, 100,000 gallons? Almost $2,000 bill. And of course, like I said, I don't care if they know it or not know it. Half of it's sewer, half of it's water. I guess we're wondering if there's a chance that, because it didn't go down the sewer, the city didn't have to treat it. I mean, obviously we have to pay for the water, but is there any way to get out of not paying the sewer bill or part of it or however? I know in the past that's happened to other.
Based on the precedent, typically what the council has done is, what level of confidence can you give us that it did not?
100%, I can show you right where it's at. Guaranteed.
Where is the water that,
It's in the hallway. We got a hole in our hallway of about 100,000 gallons underneath the tile right now.
This just happened?
It happened in November.
Okay.
so how will you dispose of that water?
Huh?
How
It
will you
went
dispose-
sideways underneath the floor somewhere. So there's a hollow spot somewhere under our floor. We haven't addressed that issue
A
yet.
sinkhole, in other words.
Could be.
So when you pump it out, what will happen to it?
Well, there's no pumping it out, the water's gone. It went into the ground. It's the fact whether we gotta bring a mud pump in and drill a hole and pump mud in it to fill the void underneath the floor. If we have 4 inches of cement, it's no problem, because we'll never have enough weight on top of it that'll ever go down and shuts a short span, but, because there's walls on either side that tie it in. But a lot of water went and it was 1.25 inch line, I don't know how long it ran. The city called us and said you're using a tremendous amount of water. Then we went up and found it. So,
So we can just act on it right now. I mean, as far as, we know 100%
Yes.
for certain that it's not.
Well, the only thing I would say is typically what we have done in the past is whatever their standard annual monthly amount of sanitary sewer, because they would have had some standard.
Oh, absolutely.
use, would typically still, we've never forgiven that portion of it. If we can identify with some reasonable certainty what the additional amount is, that's typically been what the council has been willing to forgive in the past.
Sure.
But I'm sure Dee Dee can look at averages in the past to make that type of determination.
and then obviously that wouldn't be a check towards the church. I would just expect it would go,
Oh, that's actually something else to point out. This has already been paid.
yes.
So this, we would be determining after this probably, we would need to be making, once we figure out what the final amount it would be, at claims in February, you'd probably be approving a final rebate check in claims. That's probably how that would happen.
Couldn't they just
What do you
put it
think,
towards
Sam?
credit, so the city would,
Credit it.
why don't we just credit it? That way,
Yeah, we could do it that way.
would that be all right? I mean, I'm sure that's gonna be fine with the church. If that's less hassle for you guys and Sandy.
It would be.
Whichever's the simplest. I mean, if you decide to do it, whichever's gonna be the easiest for everybody.
I'll make the motion to forgive the portion of the sanitary sewer, portion of the amount that was leaked out, adjusting for what their average monthly usage is, deducting that, and applying that as a credit to the Catholic Church's bill.
Motion has been made and seconded to forgive the portion of the city bill to the Catholic Church minus their usual billing for the sewer. And the monies that is going back to the church will show up as a credit in their future bills. Should call for a vote.
Councilperson Bruni,
Yes.
Harry,
Yes.
McGinty,
Yes.
Franny,
Yes.
motion carried.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
You bet.
Five miscellaneous C is the second reading of ordinance number 2013-252.
You have a B.
Oh, I'm sorry, I put a line through it and I thought I was done. Consideration of final application for tax abatement under the city's herbal revitalization plan for Brian and Carol Hansen.
They built a house.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just in case you hadn't noticed.
I wish we had quite a few more. You have questions or comments or discussion around it?
So we just need to approve their application for that. I'll make a motion.
It's already been.
Wait a minute,
sent
we have a
past the
question.
county assessor.
Okay.
Are there figures attached to that?
Well, based on what the county assessor has presented, the application shows that the increased value is just short of $209,000. It's at the very bottom. You'll see that that's
Okay,
where
gotcha.
they've signed off
Thank you.
and set a value. Because it has to reach a certain value threshold or percentage value increase threshold in order to qualify.
I will make a motion to approve the application for tax abatement under the city's urban revitalization plan for Brian and Carol Hansen.
Second?
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the application for tax abatement under the city's urban revitalization plan for Brian and Carol Hansen. Would you call for a vote, please?
Councilperson Perry,
Yes.
McGinty,
Yes.
Franny,
Yes.
Bruni,
Yes.
motion carried.
Okay, now 5 miscellaneous. C is the second reading of ordinance number 2013-252, entitled an ordinance amending the code of ordinances of the city of Sac City, Iowa by amending provisions pertaining to chapter 95 subsection 5 sanitary sewer system, sewer connection required.
As a refresher to some and new to others, what this pertains to is that administrative code with the state had changed previously. Ours was consistent with the previous code, which was that if you were within the footage, but yet you would have to use something other than gravity for sewer lines, you could forego hooking up to our sewer system. The administrative code governed by DNR now has taken that language out, and there's no longer that provision. If you're within a certain footage, you're expected to hook up. We're making our code consistent with what DNR is already asking us to enforce.
I move the second reading of ordinance number 2013-252, entitled,
Is there,
as
is there a
written here.
second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded to approve the second reading of ordinance number 2013-252, an ordinance amending the code of ordinance of the city of Sac City, Iowa by amending provisions pertaining to chapter 95 subsection 5 sanitary sewer system, sewer connection required. Would you call for a vote, please?
Councilperson McGinty,
Yes.
Franny,
Yes.
Bruni,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
motion carried.
Thank you.
Has there been any objection or discussion of this at all?
There might be here in a second.
Yeah, Curtis?
I'm just curious, before you get too far away from this, do you know how many homes have been affected by this or properties have been affected by this change?
In the time that I've been here, I've been aware of about 3 or 4 that have been allowed not to hook up as a result of this, or have done some type of form of a modified hookup, where they were, for instance, maybe their basement wouldn't be gravity fed, but the rest of the house would. So they'd hook the rest of the house up, but they'd hook up the basement to a septic tank of some form. Well, under the new provisions, and actually that's the way this came up, was in discussions with Sherry Wilson. It was pointed out to us that that was no longer applicable. Now they would have to, the new ones moving forward will not have to have a pump in order to have those type of facilities.
Has there been an effort to inform those property owners?
Those who already have it would be grandfathered in through our, we would not enforce anything through our code.
Will be new
Correct.
people.
This is only affecting new, for instance, new houses or people who are, say if we build a new road within 100, 200 yards of you, then it might be an impact, but
Thank you.
no
Can we
problem.
waive the third reading of this?
You do have that right, yes.
I would move that we waive the third reading of ordinance number 2013-252.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded to waive the third reading of ordinance number 2013-252. The ordinance amending the code of ordinance of the city of Sac City, Iowa by amending provisions pertaining to chapter 95, subsection 5, sanitary sewer system, sewer connection required. Would you call for a vote, please?
Councilperson McGinty,
Yes.
Brandy,
Yes.
Rooney,
Yes.
Terry.
Yes.
Motion carried.
5 miscellaneous, item number D is consideration of amending the contract with Clayton Energy Corporation.
Since we signed our agreement with them back in 2006, there hasn't been a renegotiation of terms. We were due for a renegotiation. For those of you, I guess maybe Gary would only be the only one who was here at that time. When we hired them, they were hired to purchase our gas on our behalf with the knowledge and experience on the marketplace. We've had a pretty good relationship with them over that time. They're now asking that we build in some form of an increase into the model. And what they have on here is that every 4 years, there would be a 2% increase is the way that would work. They believe that will keep up, that's enough to keep up with their cost of doing business, an adjustment for that purpose.
That would be 2%, correct?
Correct, at that time, yeah.
And the first increase would be,
And there would be one now, and there would be one 4 years.
4 years.
Yes.
That reads January of 2014. Curtis?
Are you able to say what that increase would look like in dollars right now?
You're talking about $1,000, something like that. Give or take, about $1,000.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions?
Do you think this is a reasonable?
Well, I
Request?
kind
I
of
mean,
look
what are
at it
your
this
thoughts?
way, I kind of look at it this way. Our cost of doing business goes up every year.
Right.
And you try to offset some of it. If you follow just a simple model, your cost of business goes up to 3% every year, generically. You try to offset that through your expectations through savings. Well, if what they're looking at is 2% every 4 years, that's what, 0.5% a year. I think that is a fairly reasonable recommendation.
Do you have any knowledge of what other companies that may do this? What's in reason for, would they be comparable or less or more?
Actually, there's very little competition out there in the market for this type of service. There's a new one that's starting to move in and talk to some of us, but they only do business with one city in the entire state of Iowa.
Not much reference.
No, Clayton contracts with about 80% of the municipal gas companies in the state of Iowa.
Thank you.
That's
this
the
is
only
in
thing.
keeping for what they do with, they're doing with other municipalities and too.
This is being proposed to all customers at this time.
And that's the only change that's on this, is that
There's some
Yeah.
language, but that's
Yeah, a
really
little bit of
major.
language.
verbiage. I would make a motion to approve amending the contract with Clayton Energy Corporation.
Second it.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded to approve the amendment of the contract with Clayton Energy Corporation. Would you call for a vote, please?
Councilperson Terry,
Yes.
McGinty,
Yes.
Brandy,
Yes.
Rooney,
Yes.
motion carried.
Thank you. 5 miscellaneous E is discussion on vacated alley sale.
The maps don't really do well justice to this. We received this late last week. We weren't able to complete our investigation on it, but I want to bring it to your attention, so if you have any questions, we can discuss it before we move further on it here in 2 weeks. Mr. Page, this is the second time Mr. Page has come and talked to me about this property in the time I've been here. Typically, the second map of the little packet is probably the best one to use. You will see that there's a vacated alley that basically exists that goes through about 80% of that block in the middle of your back map.
This one right here?
Yes, and that's what his question was about. Previously, some of the other property owners have suggested that they would be in opposition to us selling that and losing the access that might be available through that area. When I communicated that on initial conversations previously that there was opposition, Mr. Page had decided not to move further with it. Well, that was a couple of years ago. Now he has come back to me and asked if he's purchased some of that land, and he is now asking if we would be reconsider that issue. I have not had an opportunity yet to talk to the other 2 property owners that you will see on that actual block, but I'll be talking with them in the next couple of days to see how they feel about it. Our practice has basically been that we don't want to eliminate any right-of-way accessible options if there is use. For instance, I can think of somebody who recently in Bruce's area was wanting to buy an alley, which was a usable alley. And we knew there were people that were using it on a regular basis. So I recommended to him that our recommendation would not be to do it yet. But I'll be touching base with these people. I just want to make you aware that this was something we were working on.
Is there any homes in there? Yeah, Cloovers live at the end of that alley, don't they, at the other end?
Yeah. So,
Okay.
but there's been a discussion that they may have concerns about this as well.
But the person that was against it before, he's actually bought that piece of property. Right.
He's bought one of the pieces of property.
So how much of this block do Pages own?
You see where I have the number 1 and the number 2 written?
Mm-hmm.
He owns everything else.
Yeah.
Everything else around that spot.
So then the
Up to
alley
14th
actually
Street.
separates the property that he owns.
Yes, the north and south property he owns. Yep.
He owns the whole rest of that.
He owns everything west of that number 1 to 14th Street, and he owns everything west of the number 2 over to 14th Street.
Was the alley vacated between number 1 and number 2, or did it ever exist?
I can't answer that question. I would assume at some point the city
Does he
must
have plans for that?
I have been told and by him previously that his plans were to put in a drive so he could park stuff there.
To take his traffic off of 13th Street,
Right.
where he breaks the curbs.
I would want to know what the other property owners feel
I will also check with the Cloovers.
Okay, so
before making
we
a
won't make
decision.
any
Sure.
decision on that at this meeting.
And what we would be doing at the next meeting is we'd be setting a public hearing. So by then, I would have heard from all 3 of these parties and be able to give you a...
Mhm. Curtis?
Can you describe where this alley goes and what way it runs?
It is the alley on the block in between Ingersoll and Phelps Street and 13th and 14th Street.
Goes east and west.
East and west, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Item number 6 is public input on solid waste matters. Is there any? Okay, if not, we're gonna move on to item number 7, which is council forum.
I have 2 pieces of information to share with the council tonight. The first one is on some water leaks we've been experiencing. I've been trying to keep the water committee up to date, but it seems to be changing so often, it's been a little difficult to do. We have experienced 3 leaks in the last roughly week, and we have resolved 2 of them. The first one, probably all of you are aware at this point, was on South 16th Street, just north of the elementary school. After talking with the school and working with them and Kids World, we ended up shutting school down on Friday. in order to fix the leak. It took all day Friday to get the leak repaired. Then today, or a little bit yesterday, on into pretty much all day today, we fixed the leak in front of the State Farm business on Main Street. That was resolved today. By the end of the week, we will have completed on another leak that is occurring on in front of the car wash. To give you an idea of the size of these leaks, at the one on South 16th Street by the school, we figure that it was, the impact was about 200,000 gallons a day. The leak on Main Street in front of State Farm, we figure it was in the roughly 50 to 60,000 gallons a day. We expect that the one in front, just initial numbers for the one in front of the car wash, we think it's about 30,000 a day.
That was a 12-inch main on 16th Street,
Yes.
though. That was a big boy.
Yes, that's an all hands on deck problem. And initially, we were thinking of doing it on Thursday. We discovered it actually right after the meeting with, the facade meeting. During the facade meeting, I was notified immediately as the facade meeting ended what was going on. We talked about doing it on Thursday morning or Thursday afternoon, and we felt to give the school we felt that there was an opportunity to give the school at least a 24-hour notice so that they could make arrangements. And I have to say, I have to applaud the school on their abilities to work with the community center to make arrangements there, and I thought it went much smoother than it could have, so.
Yeah, I just might throw in, like, on Channel 13, they were describing Woodward and Maxwell having their water systems actually shut down, and one of them at least was on a boil order. So this is not something that's isolated to Sac City. In fact, you might describe that it's a kind of a perfect storm with the drought that we have, low
The
moisture in the
change in the
ground.
heat, the
Freezes
dry
deeper.
weather, everything's
The
been
city too has
just
been
perfect.
announcing a lot of pipes breaking in their city.
Well, I heard, and I can't confirm this, but I heard at one point they figured they were chasing generically 200 rough leaks throughout their system at one time. And that's just amazing to me. But I did have one other thing before we left, that is, we've been discussing internally, and we talked about it during the orientation for the new members, about doing some work session. And I had a couple of days written down here that if you could let me know by the end of the week if any of these days would not work for you. I was leaning towards the idea we wanted them to make them issue specific. And the first time around, to kind of get our feet wet, the idea was we would, you might remember when I handed out at the first meeting of the year, I said, please hold on to the procedural. We'd be going over that type of information. I'm looking at one of 3 days, either January 30th or January 31st, or possibly February 10th. And the
What
reason
days
why
of the
there's
week
a,
are they?
and the reason why there's a skip there is because that's our annual audit visit coming in there in a week, and we don't want to do it during that period.
What time are you thinking and
What days of the week are
what days
those?
of the week?
February 10th is a Monday, January 30th is a Thursday, and 31st is a Friday. I would assume that I'm flexible if you want to try doing it. I figured it'd be easier for everybody to try to do it in the evening or either early in the morning. I figured those would be the two times that probably work for everybody.
What time frame are you thinking? How much time?
I'm thinking an hour.
Oh, if that's, okay.
I'll work with maybe.
Yeah. You know, this first one, we'll kind of be figuring out how we want these things to operate. You know, I tried to pick a topic that's something that we can all talk about and give us an opportunity to kind of get our feet wet and how this process is going to work. It's kind of a work in process, how this is going to work for us.
Would early morning work for anybody?
7.
That's what I'm thinking. Would 7 o'clock work for
You know,
everybody?
one thing, and I have no problem with that. I'm just thinking in terms of the public, at one time, the city had meetings, that were actually, I didn't meet the open meetings law. This has been a number of years ago. As far as accessibility to the public, in terms of both time and location, would the evening be more you know, I just don't want to give any impression whatsoever that this is anything other than just non-decisional making, open discussion, public involved, in fact, you know, encourage it.
Do you happen to have your sporting calendar over here with you? Do I know if anything's coming on those 3 days?
There's lots of things,
Is there?
all the way through the middle of February. You do it early enough, you know, some junior high things are done here
There's
in the
people
next
that are
week.
interested in coming, they're gonna make an effort to come.
Well,
I'm
what
pretty
about
sure Randy
noon?
Muggenberg wasn't done working tonight at 5 o'clock,
Yeah.
but he made an effort to come. If they wanna come, they're gonna come at 7 o'clock in the morning if they're that interested in it. And it's not like they're not gonna know about it ahead of time. Dale will have it in the paper, Curtis will have it on his tonight, probably already. So, I mean, people are gonna know about it.
I know the 10th of February doesn't work for me.
I just have so many meetings at night that it's gonna be hard for me to throw one more thing in there at night.
Well, you want to try the 31st in the morning, that's Friday.
Okay, with me.
Okay.
Okay, let's tentatively plan on 7 AM on the 31st then.
Where? Yeah,
Library?
Yeah, that,
I think it'd probably be good to be set away from the council meeting setting, so it doesn't give people the impression that this is a council meeting. But you're still having on public property, we still have the availability of a projector and a screen there, if we need to do anything like that.
Either that or the rec center, the meeting room, it's not used either. We have a big table people could sit around if they come, you
Sure.
know. What do you think about that idea?
I'll talk to both and see if either one of them have a conflict of schedule, and see if we can do it there.
So are you only thinking one work session, is that what you're thinking? Are you thinking you wanna do more than one? or-
Well, I think the progression here is, Teresa, that we start with this issue, and depending on how we feel about it, that there would be ones following up to this, that we'd have one talking about financing of street projects somewhere in the future, that we would have one specifically to talk about issues that we think that the council members need to have an opportunity to have more discussion and maybe more time to discover educational opportunities on things. You know, I could see, we could use them to some degree how we want to use them. The element here is that what a work session is and isn't, it isn't about you guys making decisions. It's
Yeah, I know.
about, they're more educational based than they are decision making
Right.
based.
Maybe ask the council members if there's anything that they feel like they need to have more education on,
Absolutely,
or any
Yeah.
discussions they would like to have so that they can do a better job.
yeah, absolutely.
We're
Okay.
gonna just kick off the whole procedure and kind of identify what we think is the priorities to discuss.
Sure, sure. I think we I kind of look at this one as somewhat of a softball version, looking over our procedure. It's something we're all familiar with. It's something that we can all put our heads around. We don't need to bring in a whole lot of outside expert opinion to have this type of discussion. But so it kind of gives us an opportunity to see if this is, one, we like the process we're using, how we need to modify it. Do we need to be doing it at a different time? Do we need to do different length to discuss it? And do we really think something's going to work for us to use this type of thing?
So January 31st at 7 a.m.
Yep.
and as far as the announcement to the public, it would list procedural, Robert's Rules of Order and so on, and then also perhaps discussion of future priorities going forward.
Right, okay. Just like we do with the orientations, I always end the orientations with kind of a exit interview process. What did you like about today? What didn't you like about today? What worked well? What didn't work well? So that the next time we put it on, we can improve the process.
And at one time, we talked about if there was a subject that we all felt like we needed, maybe we could invite somebody to bring their expertise and talk to us about it at that time.
You know, bring Joe Byron to come up and talk to us about TIFing, or bring Robert Johnston up to talk to us about TIFing. And the whole idea is to keep it in information.
And
That's
that
the
might be
important-
something that we do want to do, since that's been a subject that's been just thrown back and forth during this facade program.
Good idea.
Okay?
If anybody is interested, I'm doing the Municipal Leadership Academy training. The current, their online webinars, they're in some ways my least favorite format. Here's a PowerPoint with somebody trying to read, not especially well, narrating what you're seeing on the PowerPoint. The one on economic development does talk about TIFs quite a bit, and would be, if anybody's interested, I'd be happy to give you the passwords to look at that. I mean, it does talk about what city councils can do to facilitate economic development. That is somewhat interesting.
Yeah,
I'd take the password.
That's,
Okay.
in fact, at the facade meeting last Wednesday evening at the Iowa State Bank, the subject of TIF came up, related to development and of the downtown associated with the facade program, but even perhaps going, it's not possible to do it now for the facade, but for possibly going forward, that might be a consideration.
Well, one of the things that was pointed out to me in using TIF, particularly associated with the facade committee, and this came up during our Manning visit, is Adam, until you know exactly what you're doing to the buildings, don't ask your assessor yet. Know what you're planning on roughly doing to your buildings. Then go to your assessor and say, this is what we're planning on doing to the buildings, and have the assessor tell you, these are the buildings that are going to see increased value in the properties. Because he says the bigger mistake you can make in the process is assuming you're going to have increased values in the properties. And then I know of at least one county that apparently had that in mind, was developing a TIF, and then found out that the improvements, there was, I think the TIF ended up, the increased value was less than 1%. And so,
Because honestly, they're replacing windows, a building's gotta have windows, it's probably not gonna add a huge amount, especially
or
the
even
second
signage
story.
for that matter.
Yeah,
Awnings and signages aren't going to increase, specifically increase values.
so we'll
Now, the
see.
ones being tuck pointed might be a different story.
has the city ever discussed SMIDs?
Oh, sorry, what did you say?
Has the city ever discussed SMIDs as well as TIFs?
A little bit internally. I don't know that we've talked about it too specifically. One thing I would warn you about on SMIDs, and I'll explain what a SMID is for anybody who doesn't know, but the state's they are cautious of TIF. They really don't like SMIDs. And what SMIDs basically are is they're an elective decision by a district of your community. Could be a block of your community, for instance, that agrees that yes, tax us more for this specific purpose, and then they reap the benefit of paying the extra tax on their block for their improvement, for instance. I'm trying to think quickly of one.
They all share in the cost of whatever that is that
It's a-
happened to
it'd be
their
like-
work.
Right, 0.5% increase or something. Was it
Right.
self-supported municipal improvement district? Is
Yes,
that right?
yeah. What typically happens in those type of cases is it's either instigated by a representative of the district or the city comes up with the idea. And usually what it is, it says, we want to do, we want all the facades on this block to all look like old German downtown, German village. Well, what they decide to do is we'll all pay a special taxation so that can happen, and the debt will be repaid through that special taxation. I'm using a very bad example, but that's a generic way that SMIDs are. It's an elective decision to pay extra taxes for a specific purpose.
One last thing, while we're on TIFs, and for the information of the two new council members, the city did propose to the county a TIF district roughly to the Sac County Board of Supervisors, which would run from the city limits to the north out to Highway 20,
Just past it.
just past Highway 20, running parallel, then over to 196 and north of, or let's say north of the junction of the north junction of 196 and 20, up to just the other side of Highway 20, and then the west boundary would be North 16th Street. And that's it's been over a year since we proposed that. And Adam and I met with the Board of Supervisors a couple of times, and there hasn't been any action or anything, so perhaps we should consider pursuing that and see if that is, of anything that they still are interested in, or at least come to a conclusion on.
So is that through the Highway 20 annexation or Highway 20?
Highway 20 Transition Committee.
Okay? If there is no further discussion, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion has been made and seconded to adjourn, and let's call for a vote.
Councilperson Perry,
Yes.
McGinty,
Yes.
Franny,
Yes.
Bruni,
Yes.
motion carried.
Thank you, everybody.
You recycle.
Thank you guys for coming.